morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Start my timing. Let's take a deep breath together. So I'm going to begin my story in 1620. That was the year that my great-grandmother, Elizabeth Phones, arrived in the Massachusetts Bay Colony. She is the niece of Governor John Winthrop, my 9 greats uncle, first governor of that colony. When the Pequot War happened in what came to be known as Connecticut, a Siwanoy woman was brought home from that war and enslaved in the household of Elizabeth. It's a privilege to know these stories. It's a privilege to know what my people have done so that I can stand here today and own some of that shame, some of that sins that are the formation of this country. And I've come into knowing these stories from the oil paintings on my wall as a child, from my grandfather who chose in his obituary to write Charles Buckley Curtis, descendant of first settlers of Stratford, Connecticut. He wrote his own obituary. This was a point of pride in my family. And so I know that my role walking in this skin, in this body, in this time, is to be part of the healing and part of the reconciliation work happening right now. And what that looks like for me is choosing to be part of the climate justice movement. For I see climate change as just the latest symptom of the original sins of this country, of colonization, of white supremacy, of all forms of domination over one another and the earth. And that movement has taken me a lot of different places, and in that time I've seen how so often our movements repeat those sins. Has anyone ever been in an organizing meeting or an action where you just left feeling worse than when you arrived? Even here? I felt that too. And I've just had some glimpses of what might be possible when we do it differently. And I want to share one of those stories with you right now. So in 2016, I had the huge opportunity of leading the United States Youth Delegation to the UN Climate Change Conference. So I was in Morocco with a team of 15 young organizers from across the United States. And we were there to disrupt our government, which at that time was the Obama government. And we know that in that space, the United States has been a regressive, violent force of minimizing the potential for international action. And it was the second day of that conference that Donald Trump won the election. And a few members of our group had stayed up that whole night preparing for our Hillary Clinton action. And we had created a banner that said at the top, presidential to-do list. And it was maybe 10 feet long, and it had a list of what we were calling on the next administration to do. It said, respect water, honor the treaties, 100% renewable energy, abolish prisons. It was an ambitious list. And when it became clear who was really winning this election, it was about 5 a.m. And someone came to me and told me the news, and I folded. And as I folded, I knew that I had to bring our group together. And so I went around and I woke up each person in the house. And I brought us together in circle and shared the news. And in our group, We had young people representing so many of the stories and communities most impacted by this election. We had Native youth, first-generation immigrant youth, queer youth, folks for whom this was deeply personal. And we decided to stay there together, in circle. We knew that the world's media was waiting for us at the conference. And we stayed in that room for an hour and a half, holding each other, crying together. We held each other as one person went through a panic attack. We held each other as people screamed. We held each other as people froze. And it was only when we were ready that we got up out of that room and decided to take action. What would become possible if we actually attended to our needs before turning outwards to the world? And we went into the UN. Oh, the banner. First, someone suggested we need to cross out presidential and write people's, because it was always the people's to-do list. And so someone wrapped that banner around their body, inside their clothing, and we made it through the metal detectors and through the security and into the middle of the UN. And we unfurled that banner. And members of our group began to speak to the assembled press, began to cry, began to say what this meant, not just for our country, not just for the people impacted by this rhetoric, by this pain in our country, but what this meant for the globe, for those impacted by US imperialism, for those impacted by even less likelihood of climate action. And what I noticed was the intensity of the video cameras coming at us. Just an array of cameras, of journalists jostling and pushing and wanting to just grab the tears, to make the pain that was present in this space into a story for the outside world to consume. And so I walked to the front and I made my body as big as I could. And I went across the cameras and I said, "Stop! Take a step back." And then I turned to all of us, young people from around the world, and I said, "Let's form a circle." And we turned and we faced each other. And we asked the cameras to be away, to be behind us. We ended that role of performance and consumer, and we looked at each other. And we made space for prayer that day. We made space for grief that day. We held the space in the middle of this UN conference for as long as it took for everyone who was present, who needed to speak, to speak. And I don't know what that action did. But I do know that in the days afterwards, people from all over this world came up to us at the conference, wrote to us on the internet, and said, "Thank you. Thank you for being real. Thank you for holding space for what needed to come through. I've never seen anything like this happen at the UN." I have such a deep longing for us to show up in that way in moments of pain, to unequivocally claim the space that emotion, that vulnerability, that feeling deserves, and to not do that off in our siloed communities, but to do it together as a global family, as the family of folks living on this continent, to make space for the rage. And so that's my question now, is what will it look like for each of us to bring fierce vulnerability to our communities, to the moments of action, to take the lines facing each other and form a circle. Thank you.